Welcome to the signing day special. With me right now, I have head football coach Mike Kellar. Coach, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So, Coach, it seems like every year the signing days just get a little bit bigger with the way that the football landscape is now. You added some transfers, prep guys, high school players as well. I want to start with the mid-year guys that you got. First, we can start out with on the defensive side of the ball, Eugene Allen from Milford Prep. You've had some success there first, but just a little bit on him.
Yeah, we've had a lot of success with Milford Prep. I think we got like 5 or 6 kids from there.
Yeah.
Basically, to kind of get in the whole recruiting philosophy of the whole thing, recruiting's changed. You're really recruiting your team to stay, and right now we're at 90% retention rate, which in the portal era and
really good.
Where we're at, yeah, it's almost a minor miracle. I hate saying it out loud. I feel like I'm going to jinx it, but it's, we've been lucky with that. But then our big thing is to try to get some mid-year kids so that you got a good team here in the spring so you can work as a team. And we've really had Myrtle Beach Prep, some junior colleges, obviously the transfers, but Milford Prep has been really good for us. And Eugene Allen, he came in that first week. I want to say it was like the December 12th weekend. And he came in, and I mean, he's a big kid. He got to be, 6'4", 6'5". I don't know what we got him listed as.
Yeah, 6'4", 250.
Yeah, 6'4", 250, and that may be a low end on that weight. I mean, and he's doing a really good job for us in the weight room right now. And what I like about it is it's a mid-year kid, but it's really, it's not a 17, 18-year-old freshman. It's an 18, 19-year-old freshman who gets to come in and work at mid-year, and, he's going to play. He's going to go to that defensive end, D-tackle position for us. That's the hardest position in the world to find. I don't care if you're in the SEC. It's a hard position to find. And to be able to get one that can play in the Mountain East Conference and be good enough and help us with some depth there, it's a position where you really need to have 8 or 9 starters, so he'll be in that rotation right away. And in a year from now, when guys like Josh Carr and Isaiah Macklin, them guys graduate and move on, then he's your starter at this position. So we're excited about Eugene. We're excited about the direction of his development, and he's here. He did a good job in the weight room this morning. He's our skill development starts next week. He'll be here for spring ball. So yeah, we're really excited about the mid-year guys and Eugene in particular.
And for the most part, you stayed, regional in the state of West Virginia, the surrounding states, Virginia, Maryland. But a couple guys you went all the way to England for. Yeah. Henry Lies and Elia Jeffrey Ofosu. Lies the linebacker, Ofosu the safety. First of all, how'd you find those guys?
In Google Maps. No, a guy that was who's currently at Bucknell is the D coordinator. He hit me up a year ago about Henry and said, you need to look at this kid. He was on the bubble for them at Bucknell, and he was playing in what was it, NFL?
The NFL Academy.
The NFL Academy London, over there in London. And we don't really, football isn't a sport. When we have those athletic department meetings, when we talk about internationals, football is generally not a sport.
American.
It's an American deal, right? So I started watching Henry and liked him a lot. Now you gotta recruit him. So it's not like you're going to RCB High School in Clarksburg to recruit this kid, right? Yeah. He's over in London. So how do we go about recruiting him? Well, I had to download an app called WhatsApp or something like that.
Well, I think it's the WhatsApp app.
WhatsApp, something like that. So anyway, I start contacting him, and we loved his tape, and I stayed in constant contact with him. And then he told me about his buddy EJ, and I said, we'll give you some tape of EJ, and both kids they're here now. I FaceTimed with their families and went through how we're going to go about doing it. It was a completely different recruiting process for me. Bridget Carr in our international office did a phenomenal job communicating with me and was super helpful in getting the kids here. And that's the thing with this whole class. The administration, the alumni group, the town itself, I mean, the Italian restaurant, what they do for us on these recruiting visits, and then obviously the staff. I mean, those guys, those people really recruited this class and had more to do with this class than I did. I'm just kind of the last guy they talk to and try not to screw it up, so to speak, But both those kids, they're both going to be in the mix for us defensively. They'll help our kick game immediately. They are long and fast and good athletes and competitive kids, and I'll be quite honest, I didn't know what we were getting into because you don't have the same evaluation process as you do some of the others. But seeing them in the morning runs and in the lifting, I couldn't be happier with those two.
Yeah, and moving to the offensive side of the ball, we talked about Milford a little bit ago. Alex Willis, offensive lineman. I mean, you're not going to miss him when he walks through. 6'7", 355 pounds. Just a little bit on him.
Yeah, he's just a kid, and he kind of learned how to control his body a little bit. he's a little bit of a project for us because he is so big. You know, when I sat and talked to his family, I said, you know, it's going to sound crazy, but he's too big. So he's done a good job. His weight's down a little bit. You know, in the morning runs, he's really done a good job of keeping up for a guy that big. He's a guy in 2 years. I'm hoping people look at us and go, where did you get that guy? You know, and because he's skilled, you know, he moves pretty well for a guy that size. It's just, you know, obviously he can't play at 355 pounds. He needs to be 6'7", 315, where you don't lose that in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And you got to change a lot of your habits. And he's off to a good start, and getting him here at mid-year is critical. And we don't have enough depth line-wise. I mean, I got to imagine Caleb DeBoer just took the Alabama job. He's somewhere right now talking about how he doesn't have enough depth offensive line-wise. So that's kind of par for the course. So if you get a kid like that from a school like Milford who could come in and put him through our strength conditioning program and let him be a part of it, it's critical to us.
And then you added some weapons as well offensively. First, at the tight end position, you had Karan Purdue from Lake Erie and Gavin Messman from Lawrence Tech. Some big guys as well. Both stand at 6'6". You know, some options down the middle. You talked about yesterday on Twitter some guys that can help you in the red zone.
Yeah.
Just, you know, a little bit on those guys.
Yeah, that's such a critical position in our offense. I mean, when I played here for Coach Rod, he went to the run and shoot basically because he thought tight ends were so hard to find, and they're not any easier to find out than they were then. You know, so for us to get both those guys, I mean, you know, Gavin, his dad played tight end at Michigan State for Saban, so you know you're getting some bloodlines there. I loved his video blocking. I was concerned about him as a pass receiver, and then obviously we could work him out when you bring him here. And we brought him here and worked him out, and he's got good hands. He's going to be a good route. He's got the skill to be good pass reception guy. He's going to need our tutelage and our, you know, what we do, you know. And I did say that, like him and Corian, they're both big guys, so they're red zone targets. You know, if you really look at us statistically the last few years, we've been pretty good at moving the ball between the 20s. You know, it's when you get down that red area that has a lot to do with, you know, there's going to be scoring 35 points a game and 20 points a game is coming away with touchdowns when you get down there. And you'll have no greater. I mean, the Super Bowl this week, you'll watch Kittle and Kelsey and them guys. I mean, they are gigantic red zone weapons. They beat the linebackers in man-to-man. If you play man-to-man down there, you can put them wide and let them get a smaller corner on them and run fades and slants. And then if you get the red fence, the zone coverages down there, they're guys who can work the middle of the field and get open for you. And there's a saying that a good tight end is the quarterback's best friend. Well, that is when I played here, we had a kid named T. McGee, and I played quarter, and Terrence just getting him the ball. And I still remember 74 Y hook on every third down. You know, he'd go and turn 12 yards, turn around, I'd throw it to him, and he'd catch it, and we get 3 more downs.
And then at the outside position, we talked about the inside. You added Nassim Pacheco and Arnav Thornhill, which he can play both sides of the ball. But Pacheco, a kid, I mean, you saw 2 years ago while he was at Fairmont State. He had a good freshman year at Fairmont, went to Ventura Community College. Now he makes his way to Glenville. Just a little bit on those guys, too.
Well, yeah, he was number 17 at Fairmont 2 years ago. I can remember, like, just every week I'd watch their tape, and I'd say, oh, man, this kid. And they had a bunch of good receivers. One transferred to Shepherd. I mean, when that season was over, it seemed like every skill guy they had just transferred out of there, you know. And we were on the team a year ago. We visited him last spring, and for whatever reason, he wanted to go, the same reason everyone. He wanted to go the junior college route and get that Division I offer. And after doing it, I think he realized that we were his best bet. So, Anthony and we drove over to Frederick over this winter and sat and talked with him and made him an offer. And same thing, man. He is a put together, twitchy guy. And I think he's going to be a very good player here. Arnev is a kid from Presbyterian who we brought in. He had some family who had played here and knew the area really well. And we brought him up for a visit. And, that night we threw them both at the same time. And actually all 4 of those kids were in the same skill group working out that night. And, I think we started them around 6 o'clock, and by 6:15, I was like, if we could pull these 4 kids out of this deal, then I think that'll help our offense next year. So, but we're excited. We're going to play both those kids on the offensive side of the ball. I have another kid who have kind of hid away in the bushes that we'll probably sign this summer. I can't talk about. So if we get those 3 guys with what we got returning with, Tariq and Dylan Day and the crew that we got returning, then I feel like that could be a special group.
Was that a thing that you wanted to make an emphasis in the offseason where not that the depth had, fallen apart at the wide receiver position, but you graduated some guys leave the program. Was that a, point of emphasis for you?
I thought the last half of last year, we really struggled catching the ball. And we didn't have guys to put in. Now, some of those kids were banged up and hurt. You can't go on the radio show and say, well, the kid's limping through every practice, so he struggled on Saturday. But if you look at the Frostburg game, we won that game. They missed a field goal late to tie it. If we catch the ball, we win that game by 2 touchdowns. Yeah. And, and you got a sophomore quarterback who, the quarterback position, they get blamed for everything, so you're sitting there going, well, yeah, he's throwing right around 50% completions. I think he's 48, 49% completion, but we're having 5 drops a game. And then no one knows about the guy ran it out when he should have ran it in.
Yep, nobody knows that.
Yeah, so and then you got protection. So it's like, okay, we need to get better at this position. We need to get depth at this position. And the year before, you really had 3 guys. You had Javion Bellamy, you had Zaki Swan, and you had a Myers kid, from over Jefferson. So Isaac Myers. So we had those 3 kids on every third down. One of them, Zaki would catch an angle route, or Bellamy would catch a screen, or a little end cut, or Isaac would he'd run Y stick, and they would give you 4 more downs with that. Well, we lost those 3 kids, and some of our conversions went down, and some of our explosiveness went down, and so it was like after having that 2 years ago and not having it this past year, when the rest of the team was pretty much the same. You're like, okay, we got to replace that. Losing those guys hurt us more than we had anticipated.
Yeah, and then moving to the high school side of the ball. This year you went and got a lot of West Virginia guys, and there's some teams in the league, and it's not knocking, that don't really recruit as much in state.
Sure.
For you this year, was the crop just better to choose from, or is that just something that you really wanted to add this year?
We got a map and realized that we're in the middle of West Virginia, so we better recruit West Virginia kids. I'm from West Virginia, and I played here with Coach Rodriguez in the glory days, so to speak, and we always hear, oh, he did this, he did. Well, I know exactly what he did. I was on the team.
Yeah.
I was from here. Chris George was from Clarksburg. Jed Drenning was from Tucker County. Shane Haddix was from Tucker County. I mean, Roger and Matt, the Poinski and Cunningham, were from West Fairmont. He really killed the state is what he did. Now, did he go out and get junior colleges? Did he have some transfers and all that? Yeah.
Everybody does.
Everybody does.
Yep.
You're always going to do that. So he killed the state. Now, people don't realize there's a financial aspect to this. Let's just say it's, $20,000 to come here, tuition fees, room, board, books. It's a little bit more than that. But just to do simple math, if you're getting a West Virginia kid and he gets the promise, well, there's $5,000. If he gets the promise, generally our academic people give him another 2 or 3, so now there's $7,000. So now he is a third of the way, or almost half the way home in academic money. You get a kid who gets, full Pell, that's $7,200. Now he gets West Virginia grant, I think that's $3,600. Now he's at, what's that, 10, 11 grand. And if you get a kid who gets all of them, they're basically coming here if you don't give them a penny of football money. So to make our budgets work, to get the roster spots, you have to recruit the state.
You do.
You have to recruit the state. And to answer your first question, the crop was better. You're not just doing it because you're getting a bye. You're doing it because the kids are capable of playing, and a lot of those kids are capable of playing, more than capable of playing. I mean, one of our best defensive players since I've been here has been Seth Arnold. He's a Braxton County kid.
Right up the road.
Yeah, right up the road. We signed. We brought in the Miller kid from North Marion, and he walks through the room, and he's 6'3", he's 314. His varsity jacket won't close because he's so wide, and I'm going, and he gets a ton of academic money, and I'm sitting here going, how do we not recruit him? I would have recruited him at Cal when we were ranked 10th in the country, So, and then, the linebacker we got from there, a state champ. I'm using North Marion as an example, but if you really look at it, you're crazy not to recruit those type of kids.
Yeah, and I think some teams around the league are kind of missing out when they don't. But first starting out, Bryce Green, haven't listened as an athlete from Riverside. You've had some success getting some kids from that area. Just a little bit on him, and where will he play when he's in college as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of times when we recruit him as an athlete, that's our way of saying, listen, this kid could play, any of the 6 DB spots, or be a cover linebacker, or he could play any of the 4 wide receiver skill spots, or be a third down back. And we're basically going to choose where we play him based on what else we sign. So a lot of that'll be, we go through spring ball, and you come out of spring ball and say, oh, we're really good at receiver and not good at DB, or we're really good at DB and not as good at wide receiver. Well, then let's take a kid like that and move him to the opposite end. And a lot of it when you meet with them is basically just sitting with them and say, okay, where do you prefer to play, and how open-minded are you to moving? And generally speaking, kids want what? They want playing time. So
Yeah.
so that's I'll let you know after spring ball where we're playing him. But we have done really well in that area, and obviously our athletic director is an alum. Now he wouldn't say he's an alum of Riverside.
Yeah, I know.
But he's one of the, and he wouldn't say he's an East Bank alum either. So he's a DuPont guy, and I think we got some connections down there, and so it's a good thing. And Bryce is one of those kids, same thing, really good student, brought a lot to the program, and being smart and tough. If you noticed yesterday, I probably said that 1,000 times, smart and tough, smart and tough, smart and tough. Well, smart and tough wins. That's what we want to be.
And then, I know he played defensive back while he was in high school, and some guys you did go and get at the in the DB room. Shahid Battle won from Virginia, Anthony Baczynski from up on the Panhandle, and Jaden McClendon Parker also from Virginia. Just a little bit on those guys.
Yeah. Coach Mayer got both. He's obviously our DB coach, and he really does well in Virginia. And Baczynski, he came via when we signed the Morgantown quarterback. He said, "Hey, I got a buddy," and Baczynski, and he's an all-A guy and does everything right. And we started watching his tape, and we're like, "Man, the kid can play." Brooks a really good high school.
Yeah.
And Anthony, my son Anthony, went up there and did a good job recruiting him. But to get into Sheed and Jaden, I mean, both those guys were recruited by some really good teams in this region. And they're guys that, they're long, they're 6'2" guys, they're athletic, they could play, you're looking at them as corners, but they could play corner, in Jaden's case, I mean, and I told him and his mom this, I said, he could grow into a cover linebacker. Mm-hmm. Like, he's just so long and he's a high school corner that's going to play safety. Well, then that means he can play the nickel and dime position and be a cover linebacker. And, you think back to the Frostburg game, when they're running 2-minute offense, if you just got those type of guys playing your Mike and Will position, who can still stop run, but they could cover the back out of the backfield, it's huge for you. And defense is really all about matching groupings and matching the other team's strengths. And if you don't have those hybrid type of guys, then you're missing out. And Shahid's going to be a big, long, tall corner for us. And Jaden's going to be a guy who could play any of those 6 positions. And
then moving to the front of the defense, Seth Kearns from Tigers Valley is an all-state guy, 3-time all-conference player. Only stands at 5'10", but he's 255. You've had some success with guys who aren't, your typical maybe 6'1", 6'2" defensive lineman, but they can move the line and get what they want. Is that another player that you see in Seth?
Totally. And our big thing is, we're Glenville State. We're not, we're not Michigan State.
You're not getting 6'3", 300-pound defensive lineman.
That's exactly right. I mean, in a lot of these guys, like in his case, if he is 6'3", 275, and he's not at Tigers Valley, he's at some school at the beach, then he's probably going at least to the MAC or whatever.
Yeah.
So we're paying, or we're recruiting the skill set, and then and that being said, I mean, I look at Vince Wolfork, and he played in the NFL for 15 years, won how many Super Bowls, and he played at the University of Miami, and I've been at one of his practices. The guy's 5'11". So there you can play at the highest level at that size, but I'm looking at his accomplishments. He got a motor. He goes hard. He's from the state. He's a good student. He's smart. He's tough, and he's 3-time first-team All-State. So, in my mind, how do you not recruit a guy like that?
Yeah, exactly. And then moving to the linebacker room, which looking at everything yesterday, I think it was one of the more talented rooms that was recruited in this class. I mean, starting with ZMR Henry from Nitro. Kid who was, I believe, was 10th in the state last year in tackles, had 24 in one game against Herbert Hoover. Yeah, I mean, just a little bit on him.
Yeah, you wonder what they're doing in that game to get on with stat. Very athletic kid. He's that modern day linebacker. When I think of linebacker from when I played, you're thinking of the guy who had the neck roll, and he's a first, second downhill guy, huge guy. And we got the Brogan and Steve Bradshaw, some of them guys we got right now, Brogan, Brown, Steve, they're that guy. But Zymar is that modern day. Plays, could guard the guy in the slot, could help with the tight end and the seam. He's really good in pass coverage, and he also, like you said, he was 10th in the state. I didn't know those stats. 10th in the state in tackles, 24 in one game. So he's a guy who could eat up the run. He's a very good player for us in that way. Casey Minor at North Marion, 6 foot 195. I watched him play, 2 or 3 times live in his career. Watched him play in the state championship. I mean, just a warrior.
First team All-State, I believe he was the team captain of the Class
team
8
captain
team.
of it. Played quarterback for him and ran the ball. He's that guy. Every fan we got, they want him at quarterback so they can run the ball and not throw it. But he's a guy who, like I said, I look at Seth and saw his success, and I looked at Casey. I'm like, well, Casey's 3 inches taller, and and probably 10 pounds heavier than Seth was coming out. And Seth just, was first, second, third in the league each of the last 3 years.
Yeah, he was a monster in the Mountain East.
So I'm looking at a guy like Casey and going, why would we not take a guy like that? Gavin Davis, smart, all-A guy, Preston Forshow out of Virginia kid, just hypes, Independence, won all those games at Independence. You're adding those type of guys to this, to a already talented group. And what people don't think about linebacker is there's your kickoff team, there's your punt team,
Yep.
there's your that's critical. And those kids probably don't want to hear that because their punt team in high school didn't matter, but in college that's a big part of the game.
All 3 phases are very important.
Oh,
in
Jesus.
college.
Yeah, no doubt.
And when we talked about the hybrid guys at the DB position, are there any of the linebackers that you could see? Because like a guy like Preston, he's 6'3", 230, probably not going to play safety. But some of these guys, ZMR, 5'11", 192. Casey sits at 6 foot 195. Gavin Davis, same thing, 6 foot 195. Are there those guys that you could see? They can play linebacker because they can stop the run, but they can also cover guys. Are those guys you can see moving around?
Totally. You got to be able to play run pass at the college level. You got to be able to match groupings. You got to be able, and you got to have an attitude of, okay, this team is doing this, and I'm not good at that, so I'll sit over here and be a good teammate while this is going on. And when they need me to have my skill set, we left Preston as a linebacker, but truthfully, he's going to be an edge rush guy. He's going to be more like that Jacob Clark position than an in the middle guy. So, that is such a generic or vague term to say linebacker. They're really all specialists. It's almost like running back. Like, okay, well, this kid's a running back, but he's a third down pass receiving running back. This kid's a running back, but he's a goal line short yardage. And you just try to use their. Now you can't be so predictable when the kid comes in the game, but you do have to have a level of using their skill set. It's just, to me, that makes just good sense.
And then the final player on the defense side of the ball, Braden Boggs, out of Virginia, a safety. You recruited him on the defensive side of the ball, but he was also very successful on the offensive side of the ball. But what do you like out of him?
Well, we really thought about that long and hard, and I
figured when I saw his stats,
there's probably a chance that he does play offense. And he was in the mid-year class that we brought in early part of December, and just moves really well. He signed so long ago, I almost forgot about it. he's just a really good football player. And same thing, 5'11", 175. Can play, multiple positions on defense, offense. Very skilled guy, really smart guy. As you're breaking it down, because when you're in the middle of it, you don't really. Today's the first day you get a chance to look back at it. I couldn't be more excited about some of the flexibility these kids are going to give us to be able to do more things schematically. I thought, a year ago we beat Notre Dame, we beat Frostburg, we beat them because we were able to play a certain style that other people weren't. We also lost games at times because we weren't as deep at certain positions as we needed to be. Some of that option, play action, post-go stuff that Pembroke gave us, we weren't able to run the way we needed to run to kind of handle some of that. So hopefully, we're bringing in a class that will allow us to be more flexible with what we do. And
then moving to the offensive side of the ball, you talk about depth. You built depth at the offensive line position. I know you had some guys graduate like an All-American like Ian Pomeroy, but you went, and I'll just go through, but some of the, guys, you went to Independence for Micah Brown and Fisher Williams, stayed in the state for Derek Krogan, Grayson Kunn from Preston County, Cole Caro from Manchester Valley, 6'6", 326, another big guy you got. Yeah. Matthew Jackson from Frankfurt on the Panhandle, Caleb Conrad from Hurricane, Nate Miller from North Marion, Brandon Oldacre from Eastern in Ohio, and then Ben George, transfer, but he's one of those guys that can play offensive line or tight end because he did it both at RCB. Yeah. Just a little bit on that group as a whole.
Well, that group's almost like 3 groups. So there's a couple of those kids who are going to have to come in and compete to start. We got 5 returning starters from a year ago, but we lost our All-American center in the end. So hopefully we got someone at mid-year, or who's on the current roster who help fill that role. We also know that some of these kids, they're going to have to come in and play right away. If not start, at least travel. And some of them, as I'm looking at that list, they got a better chance of doing it immediately than others. Yeah. And like a kid like Ben, he's really a tight end, but at VMI, he got up to 285, and he's an O lineman, but he's more comfortable at 255. So I'm just like, listen, man, the kid made 1,400 on his test. He's a 4.0 student. He got his degree, and he's tough, and he's a George. He's a legacy here. His Uncle Chris he's my son Jacob's godfather, and he's probably the best player in school history. But I didn't take him for any of that. I took him because we need someone to block, and and mainly, and maybe catch the ball on some goal line stuff. So Obviously you're looking at a guy like that. He's more ready to play because he's a college guy than,
Yep.
The independence guys or some of them. They got to develop a little bit. Cole Ciro he's a lot like, the kids that we brought in mid-year. Like he's got to get himself in a little bit better shape. And you get a kid, some of these guys, Nate Miller's probably closer to playing than Brandon Oldacre. Brandon Oldacre's a really talented kid. He's 6'5", 260, played middle linebacker at his high school at Eastern. And went to college with his coach. We're really good friends. And, so some of these guys are a year or two away. Some of these guys are going to be scout team guys for us for a couple of years. Some of them got to come in and play immediately. So it's the biggest problem you got at our level is the offensive line.
It's kind of like everywhere it seems like now, especially with the way college football is.
I watched Jim Harbaugh on Kellar the other day, and he was talking about the Chargers offensive line and what they did at Michigan. And I'm like, well, if he's having a hard time getting them,
you don't feel so bad about you.
They're hard. They're just hard. I think Mike Tomlin says there's a scarcity of big men on the planet. There's just not enough of them guys to go around for all of us.
And you talk about guys that can maybe play now, guys who are development, guys that, will need to play right now. Mm-hmm. Was that something that when you were looking at that position to recruit, was it, something that you wanted to do? Like you wanted guys that could be some project guys that, like you said about Alex Willis, that in 2 years, people are thinking, well, where'd you get this guy from? And then some guys are guys that can play right now. Was that something you kind of wanted to mix the group up a little bit?
Everyone talks to me, about recruiting. That's the only thing they talk about. You just recruit it. Well, it's so cliche and so easy to say because what they're really saying is if you just recruit it and get better players, nothing else matters. Well, that's absurd. Obviously Nick Saban would talk to you about the development. Dean Smith years ago said recruiting is the foundation of our program. If it's the foundation of our program, then development is the floor. So it's a double R. It's recruiting, retention. And then within that retention, it's development. All this recruiting class, if all of them stay as they are right now, then we're not going to be very good.
Yeah.
But if they come here and they buy into what we're doing, in the weight room, they buy into what we're preaching academically, they stick around, they get better every single day, and they just start stacking days with the way they eat, to the way they lift, to the way they listen to our skills and drills and all that, then they're all going to become better football players. And that's really how you do it. When I get there, where did you find a guy 6'6", 315 to go to Glenville, West Virginia? Well, he was 6'6", 345, and we made him lose, the pounds, and we did this in our weight room, and that's how we got to do it, and that's how they have to do it at Alabama and Michigan.
Yeah, it's not like all those guys are going to play immediately.
No, it's just silly. So you got to have good coaches, you got to have good support staffs, you got to have that, and you got to develop these guys, and the guys on your roster got to get better, and no one likes that answer. They want to hear that we're going to just give NIL money to Pat White and he's going to come here and just run up and down the field. And I want to say, well, that's not how it happened at West Virginia. They coached him,
exactly.
and obviously he's a skilled guy, but I guarantee he wasn't the only guy in that quarterback room that had a skill set. So it's all of the above.
And then the quarterback room, you went and got 3 this class. I think that's not that it's not as common now, but usually most teams get about 1 or 2. You got 3. The quarterback room kind of shrunk after the season. You went and got Maddox Bowers out of Morgantown in state, Ian Crookshanks from East Fairmont. Then you went to Maryland to get Brody Williams to round out the class. Just your thoughts on the quarterback class this year.
Coach Rob played in our golf tournament a couple years ago, and he said, I'd like to sign 10 a year. And we were laughing about it. I was like, I think he's fibbing there, but he likes a lot of them, so and I'm not so sure he is. So you just obviously, generally speaking, quarterbacks are good athletes. Now, I don't want to get all his kids' personal business, but between Ian, Maddox, and Brody, I don't think there's a B in the group. They're all very. I don't think they would mind me bragging that they're smart kids, and they all bring a little bit of a different skill set. Now, Maddox and Ian, I had them both at camp, each of the last few years. I know Maddox is coming off a shoulder surgery, and he's got to get his arm back to where it was 2 years ago. So he may be a little bit further away. Ian, I think, is physically pretty much, maybe not totally ready to play. Obviously what we do on offense is going to be a little bit more sophisticated. And Brody's a kid who was a really good athlete who could run around and do some stuff. I'm kind of interested to see how he goes. I don't need any of them to play right away. I've got our two of our top 3 kids back from last year, our starters back. I would still take a transfer in the room just because I think generally that's what you do. You're always going to be looking for those guys. when I was at Cal, we had success with high school kids. We had successful transfers. It's a different world now. It was easier to get transfers before the portal because you would be the only one who maybe knew about them. You could work, you could have a contact. Coach Rod used to, he had the connections at WU. He used to go watch them practice. He would get a couple kids a year out of WU. It would be almost impossible to do that now because now they would be in a portal and everyone in America would be looking at them. A kid who's at WU, he falls to Delaware. He doesn't fall to Glenville the way it used to be. That being said, we're always going to keep our eyes and ears open for a guy like that to fall back to us, especially at that position. But we love Anthony, and I believe he's going to be first team all league. I think he could be as good as there is in this league. He's just gotta continue to grow as a player, and then Gunner's a really good number 2, very reliable guy. We got to find one of these young kids here somewhere to be the 3. And the Huffman kid out of Dodgers, he's in that mix as well. So we got to find a guy like that, and then if we could find a transfer, we would look for one.
And then at the running back position, he can play linebacker too, but DeWatt Smith out of Chancellor, Virginia, looking at him 6'1", 215, but when you watch him play, he's a big kid. He runs hard, kind of like that Saeed Galloway.
Very much Saeed, and when we recruited him, I thought linebacker rush guy the whole way. And then after as we got closer, we knew we were going to get him. I was like, my God, someone got to replace Saeed. And I made the comment yesterday, reminds me of Eddie George. No one younger knows who that is anymore. but that big back who could get you the 1 or 2 yards when you need it. I think he could come in and probably do that for us right away. And then he would have to develop as a pass receiver and protection guy and be a complete 3-down back for us. But I think he could help us right away at 6'1", 215 on 3rd and 1. And you don't know how bad you need a yard till you need a yard.
Yeah. Well, and that's a guy too that you can come in because you talk about Saeed leaving. You bring back Fredo Menger, and then you bring back Xavion. But in your time here, you've usually ran a 3 running back set, so that gives you that power back guy. Not that Fredo and Xavion can't get that yard,
totally.
But Saeed has been that guy in the past that he's just such a bigger guy. I mean, it's like tackling a smaller offensive lineman.
Well, that's exactly right. And you like to give backs roles. You like to play more guys. You like to wear people out with your people. But, it's really changed. When Mike Joseph was our running back when I first started, then through the years, you had one guy and he carried it 25, 30 times. Mm-hmm. The game is physical. It's a different game now. And, our backs, our 2 backs you just talked about, they're tough as can be, but at 30 carries a game over 10 games.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. And I don't know how much their body can handle that. So I think they kind of appreciate getting 15 carries and someone else carrying the mail a little bit. So you got to get that room deep. And some guys are going to have to step into that 3rd role, and we got to find someone to be that short yardage guy for us.
And then we talked about the tight ends with the transfers in Karan and Gavin, but then you went out and got some high school guys as well. Avery Brown from East Fairmont, and then Nick DeProspero from Morgantown. Maddox Bowers, a teammate, Crookshanks at East, I believe it's East Fairmont.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You get some guys that they have some familiarity with those guys, but just what do you like at seeing those 2 guys?
Well, that tight end position is 2 different positions. It's an on the line guy who could make you a 3-man surface. Not to get into the football part of it too thick, but that takes one set of skills. Then there's a behind the line guy who's an RPO guy, catch the little dumps and the flats and could be in motion and has to use his head and lead on linebackers, safeties, and And if you look at the East Fairmont and Morgantown kid, if you look at Brown Depresso, they're 6'1", they're 205. They need to get a little heavier. They're going to take that Isaac Myers role from 2 years ago. They're probably a year away from that. But in a year, that could be a really deep position for us. And we have some guys on the yard now who we think can do that. And then we're wanting to take that position and develop those guys. Same thing. They're both very skilled. They're both guys who they come in here. They're very smart kids. They're work hard, right guys. If they come in here and eat right and lift right, and all of a sudden they're 6'2", 225, 230, for the 2025 season, then you're in business.
Yeah, that's where you really make your money there. Mm-hmm. And then moving to the final position of the class, wide receiver. We talked about getting some regional guys, and then we talked about, you went to England to get the 2 guys. Yeah. You went to Florida to get Cordell Lewis. How did that happen, and just what are your expectations there with him?
I think Coach Mayer had to connect with one of the coaches down there, and we brought Cordell in, and it was that December week that we talked about, and he did really, really well, post-go guy, and we offered him, and I think he committed on the spot, and we kind of had him in our pocket since then, and we're excited about where he will be. And you look at the transfers we brought in. I just talked about we had a couple of good kids already on the yard. Then we had a couple of transfers who are here now, and now you had him and McLaughlin. They're both 6'2", 175, 6'3", 165. They're big guys who you hope could play right away. And then you got BJ from Clay County, BJ Williams, he's that little that little shifty, short area quickness guy. Him and Sims both from Herbert Hoover. They're shorter, 5'9", 5'8", 5'7", 160-pound guys. They can run those whips and those jerk routes and be those guys, and probably be a year, play scout team for us next year, and then help us in 2025 with kick game and back up, and then 2026 season on, be guys who play for you. So, I mean, that's really trying to predict the future, and a lot of, I would say a lot of water got to go under the bridge between now and then. But that's kind of how we're seeing them.
As an overall class, I mean, is a big class, which, like I said earlier, they all are becoming big classes. But just overall, how do you feel about the class coming in?
I think it's a little bit of everything. If I looked at recruiting, I felt really good about our retention of our current roster. I was really happy with the mid-year guys we got, and then to go out and take a high school class and get a little bit of everything, guys who could help you right away, guys who are a year or two away, guys who are developmental guys who you think could come in and help you, in both sides of the ball, and especially to maintain or add to our offensive and defensive lines. Truthfully, that's where it's at. Skill, there's more skill than there's ever been. If you don't have skill, shame on you. But those O-line and D-lines to add to that and give our coaches some material to work with, the mold, I'm super happy with it. I'm also super happy with the character of the kids. I mean, there is no issues in this class. Not to say that they can't come to college and create some issues.
Oh, yeah.
But you're really looking at a bunch of. I mean, there got to be others. Was there 36, 37 kids? I guarantee you, 15 of them are all A student. I mean, it's just, and that's not why we took them. We took them because they're football players. But obviously, who they are as people and how well they do academically is critical to us. So I'm pretty excited about the class. I can't wait for them to get here so we can start working with them. And
one last thing, you spoke on the development guys and guys that can play right now. With the way that college football is, where guys can come here for a year and say, "Well, I'm not playing right now. I'm going to leave." Does that make it harder in your recruiting process when you're trying to get development guys? And you can't, you never can guarantee anybody anything.
Sure.
But guys that are going to be development guys, but sometimes maybe they don't want to be development guys. Does that kind of make recruiting harder a little bit?
None of them want to be, which is absolutely silly because Tom Brady was developed.
Exactly.
So they're just young and naive. I think the portal is. Everyone thinks the portal is the best thing to happen to players. It is the best thing that's happened for coaches. There are more players in that portal than there are positions for us to give. So it's supply and demand. There's more supply than there is actual demand. It's hurt the kids.
There's a lot of kids that enter the portal and they never find another home.
And I was in the NCAA meeting a year ago, the D2 head coaches meeting, and I don't want to quote the stats because they'll be a lie, but it was something like 95, 96, 97% of all the kids that go in the portal don't graduate in 4 years. Drop that down 10, 12 points in the mid-80s. Those kids don't graduate in 5 years. Like 60, 70% of the kids who go in the portal never come out of the portal. So it's really, kids aren't doing their research and they're jumping in there too soon. I think the portal is a good thing. I think it's good. It could be a good thing for the kids. Your coach leaves, you should be able to go in the portal. You don't have a major, you should be able to go. I think transferring is a good thing, but I think it should be hard to do. Just like if you're in a bad marriage, I think getting out of it and having divorce is a good thing, but it shouldn't be something you take lightly. It should be something serious. It's the same thing with this portal. These kids need to be educated on it. They need to know. Like we had a kid leave at mid-year. He passed 16 credits here. Well, because the new school is a different type of school, 13 of those credits didn't transfer. Yep. So now he basically, and he's a really good student, really smart kid. I'm not going to mention names. The father wasn't happy. I mean, I'm like,
he loses a whole year of school.
He lost the whole year of school, or a whole semester.
Whole semester, yeah, correct.
And, when it's 120 credits to graduate generally, and you just gave 13 of them away, and that cost $10,000 from somebody, that's, and it costs actually a little more than that. Yeah. So it is what it is. I think that the novelty of it will slowly wear down. And Coach Trick and I were talking on the phone the other night, and he said these coaches who end up develop in these kids and get their kids to stick. He said these guys who were just chasing portal kids, he believes in a year or two you're going to see the change in the program. Look at Michigan. Look at Michigan. Look at all the kids who stayed. Look how they did it. Look how they beat all these teams.
Yep.
You know, Washington, they had a great team, but they were a team full of transfers, and you saw who won. I mean, they're just doing it right. Still, there's still nothing that beats doing it the right way.
Well, Coach, it was a pleasure, talking to you about, the 2024 class, and I'm sure we'll speak with you, once spring ball's over. But we're looking forward to the season next year.
Yep, me too. Thank you.